The first text came at 2:13 a.m. "We're not coming back." No greeting, no explanation, just a sentence that sounded rehearsed. I was already awake. I had been awake for weeks. Their bedroom doors were open, closets half emptied. The silence inside the house felt staged, like a scene arranged before I walked into it. On the kitchen counter, the spare key I never gave them. Beside it, a folded note in handwriting that wasn't either of theirs. They deserve freedom. Stop controlling them. I read it twice. Then I smiled. Control. That was the word they'd chosen. Not structure. Not rules. Not home. Control. 3 months earlier, they'd stood in this same kitchen, arms crossed, eyes bright with borrowed confidence. "We don't answer to you." I remember the way my wife didn't look at me when they said it, the way she stared at the sink instead. They wanted independence. They said my rules were suffocating. They said they were adults. So I gave them exactly what adults receive. Consequences. I didn't reply to the text. I simply turned off the porch light. The rebellion hadn't started with them. It started with her. Small things at first. Whispers in hallways that stopped when I entered. Bank withdrawals she called miscellaneous. Long talks behind closed doors with the kids, voices low, conspiratorial. I wasn't their father. I knew that. But I had fed them, paid tuition, covered hospital bills, kept the heat on in winter, and slowly, deliberately, I became the villain in my own house. "Maybe you're too strict," she'd say. "Maybe they need space." Space. I gave them space to grow. She gave them a narrative. I began noticing patterns. Receipts for an apartment viewing, email confirmations she forgot to delete. A group chat, muted, but visible when her phone lit up beside me in bed. Operation Freedom. They thought I didn't see. They underestimated my silence. One evening, I walked into the living room and the conversation died mid-sentence. They were planning something, not escape. Extraction from me. And the worst betrayal wasn't their defiance. It was her alignment. She didn't defend me. She didn't correct them. She let them believe I was temporary, disposable. That's when I stopped arguing and started observing. I played the role they expected. Strict, predictable, cold. Inside, I was meticulous. I accessed the shared account records. 3 months of small transfers to an unfamiliar landlord. I traced the address. A 2-bedroom rental across town. Leased in her name. Not theirs. Her name. I checked the dates. The lease began the week after they'd shouted in my kitchen. So the confrontation had been theater. The decision had already been made. I waited. Watched. The kids became bolder. Later curfews. Sharper words. She defended them every time. "You're pushing them away," she told me once. I almost laughed. No, she was repositioning them. And I was the obstacle. I found the final piece on a quiet Sunday morning. An email from her attorney. Subject line, post-separation financial review. Post-separation. She wasn't just helping them leave. She was preparing to leave too. And the children were the leverage, emotion packaged as morality. They would say I was rigid, that I created an unbearable environment, that she had no choice but to protect them. I printed everything. Every transfer, every email, every lease agreement. Then I scheduled a meeting with my own attorney, not to argue, to prepare. If they wanted independence, I would formalize it. Completely. The truth didn't explode. It arrived in a thick envelope. Clean, organized, final. Legal confirmation that the house, purchased before our marriage, was solely mine. The savings account she'd been diverting funds from, also mine. The quiet transfers, documented, recoverable. That night they returned. Not out of regret, out of logistics, boxes in hand, tension in their shoulders. She walked in last, avoided my eyes. "We just need a few more weeks," she began carefully, "until the apartment is ready." I slid the envelope across the table. Inside, copies of the lease, the financial records, the lawyer's letter. Silence. Her face drained first, then anger replaced it. "You went through my things?" "I verified my reality," I said calmly. The oldest stepchild tried to speak. Stopped. They hadn't known. She hadn't told them the plan included divorcing me, using them as justification. I watched understanding fracture their certainty. "You said this was about us," one of them whispered to her. She didn't answer, because now the story had shifted, and I was no longer the villain. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply handed them a second document, a formal notice, effective immediately. They had chosen independence. I had legalized it. She stared at the date. "You're throwing us out?" "No," I corrected softly. "I'm honoring your decision." The apartment was ready. Utilities transferred, funds redirected. I'd even arranged movers. Efficiency is a language of power. The children looked between us. Confusion, betrayal, fear, not of me, of her. She had promised them freedom without cost. I had shown them the invoice. "You plan to leave me," I said, almost conversationally. "You just expected me to fund it." Her composure shattered. Tears, excuses, claims of misunderstanding. I remained seated. Still, watching the architecture of her strategy collapse. The kids realized something essential in that moment. I wasn't controlling. I was prepared, and she had gambled with their stability. They walked out that night quieter than they had arrived. Not rebellious, disillusioned. The house felt different after they left. Not emptier, cleaner. Silence without tension is peaceful. I changed the locks the next morning. Not out of spite, out of clarity. She sent messages for days. Regret dressed as reconciliation. I didn't respond. Independence had been their demand. I respected it. Weeks later, I heard the apartment arrangement had fallen through. Funds stretched thin. Reality heavier than imagined. They asked if they could come back. I considered it for exactly 4 seconds. Then I remembered the note on the counter. They deserve freedom. They have it now. Completely. And I finally understand something they didn't. A house is not a prison. But once you declare war on its foundation, you don't get to live inside the ruins. I turned off my phone. And for the first time in months, I slept.